Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second ICLEI webinar towards COP25, taking place today, Wednesday, 20th February 2019, excuse me, at 10 o'clock and 16 o'clock Central European Time. My name is Ji-Sun Huang, Senior Climate Advocacy and Policy Officer, based here in Bonn, Germany at the ICLEI World Secretariat. I will be a panelist as well as a facilitator of today's webinar. And on behalf of ICLEI, I would like to extend my heartfelt welcome to all of you. Before we get started, let me give you a quick technical introduction to today's webinar. First of all, you're automatically muted, and I would like you to please remain so until the end of all the presentations to ensure smooth proceedings. Secondly, you can type in your questions anytime during the webinar, so please feel free to use the questions box. And last but not least, this webinar is being recorded in keeping with the principles of openness and transparency. And upon the closure of this webinar, all of you will get the links to the YouTube broadcast as well as the PPT files. With that, let me move on to introducing my fellow panelist, Mr. Yunus Arikang. He is the head of global policy and advocacy, also based in ICLEI World Secretariat, who is also the local governments and municipal authorities constituency focal point to the UNFCCC. Now with that, let us get started in today's webinar. First of all, this is a table of contents of today's webinar. So we will start by recapping the COP24 outcomes for the LGMA constituency, and we will look at the LGMA agenda and other UN agenda for 2019, and we will round it all up by having a detailed look on the UNFCCC agenda. Now with that, I would like to give the floor to Yunus. Yunus, over to you.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Thanks a lot for joining our webinar today. And this, as was presented by Jason, we'll go through more details of the agenda of 2019. If you can recall, in our first webinar of the year, we had a brief recap of what we did or achieved at COP24 in Katowice. There was the last slide focusing on the agenda or the calendar of events. In this presentation, we will share with you more details and also keep you updated with the latest revised dates or structures of the events that we heard about. But just a quick start, let's recall where are we in the Paris Agreement. As we know, Kyoto Protocol and UNFCCC did not have any references to local and regional governments. In Paris Agreement, both the document that was ratified by the parliaments and the heads of state and the technical the conference of the parties decision text has numerous references. Therefore, in particular with reference to the preambular paragraph that recognizes the importance of engagement of all levels of government, we as local and regional governments have much more now responsibility and opportunity and capacity to engage with the global climate agenda. And that's why anything that is around the delivery of the Paris Agreement is directly also engaging us. But let's also recall this achievement of our engagement in the process is a result of three processes or three work streams, what we can say. One is the traditional advocacy of local and regional governments through constituency-based engagement. The second one is the UNFCCC level technical work streams, negotiations, or discussion sessions. And the third one is initiatives that change the mode of dialogue and collaboration among non-party stakeholders and the UNFCCC parties through UN Climate Summit. And we expect that such interactions will continue to evolve or shape the next steps of our engagement as well. If we can recall what was included in the climate or Katowice climate package adopted at COP24, we have numerous references, especially in the technical parts of the NDC's adaptation, technology, and transparency. But among those, and on top of that, the most important three outcomes from Katowice for us is the first one is the decision on Talanoa dialogues. This decision invites parties to consider the outcome, inputs, and outputs of the Talanoa dialogue in preparing the national determined contributions and enhance their ambition. This is literally the most valuable phrase we can think about, because it gives a huge legitimacy of all our Talanoa dialogue experience, and we can now go back to all the countries to say that, look, if you want to increase or deliver your NDCs, this is the right moment. You can engage, and you should engage. How cities and regions have been demonstrating their multi-level action experience or vision. And now 2018 was a year for mobilization and to raise this awareness on engagement in the NDCs, and 2019 onward is really the concrete examples of how we literally work with the national governments, both the delivery of the current NDCs, but more important also to advance the future NDCs, which are expected to be prepared or presented by 2020. The second most important decision for us is that the COP has endorsed the decision of the Standing Committee on Finance, um, where the 2019 forum will particularly focus on cities. This is an extremely valuable opportunity. Those who have followed the UNFCCC advocacy of local and regional governments, you can recall our journey started in 2007 together with the Bali Action Plan. Original plan was Copenhagen, and then we shifted, and then we reached to COP Paris. During this journey, our proposal was that we want to ensure recognition, engagement, and empowerment. In terms of recognition, we were mentioning that there should be an official language, which we achieved in the Paris Agreement. Engagement is how we can be part of the process, which Talanoa dialogue literally demonstrated. And the last part was that if we all want to rapidly accelerate action, we need resources, technical, financial, and legal, so that our opportunities can be better seized. And now with the Standing Committee on Finance specific forum on cities, we are much closer to this idea. That therefore we are excited that during the year, both the preparations and the outcome of the forum would open us new opportunities. You can recall, usually local and regional governments, the advocacy is so strong in the sense that whenever we see an opportunity, we come up with a good result. The latest example was the IPCC agenda, where now we have a long-term vision for cities and research. So we assume, or we hope, throughout these achievements over the years, and especially in 2019, we can expect much more robust contributions to our work, and especially on the climate finance through this forum. And lastly, there was also an important agenda item, which is the work of the UNFCCC parties on public awareness raising, participation, and training education, which is abbreviated as the ACE, Action for Climate Empowerment. And over the past years, there have been numerous workshops or sessions, which was engaging local governments as well. And at COP, they have made a clear invitation that we should be more actively involved, and we would like to take this opportunity as well in the years to come. So with this, let's go to the details of the agenda for LGMA in 2019. Our main goal is that we should continue to raise ambition through our own initiatives, own campaigns, or networks, or individual decisions of cities and regions, as much as possible to accelerate climate neutrality before mid-century. We should be aiming for multi-level NDCs, and we should ensure the political momentum is raising urgently, regardless of what happens on other fora. In that sense, we see the diversity of events under three main headings. One is the bottom-up or constitution-driven efforts, independent from the UN agenda. The other one is the UNFCCC negotiation processes. And the third one is the rest of the other UN processes outside of the UN climate change convention, but having strong inputs and outputs to this process. We will now go through each of those. One thing we have highlighted during this couple of months, one important agenda item would be the result of the European Parliament elections. As we have stated before, Paris Agreement has demonstrated its resilience to the shocks that came from changes in the federal or national leadership in several countries, in particular in US and Brazil, and over the past years. Um, we hope the European leadership can be strengthened and leveraged further based on the outcome of the European Parliament elections, or in case less ambitious structures comes up through the results of the elections, we should make sure the global climate agenda doesn't step back or backslide. So among all these agendas, these kind of political momentums are also important, of course. And one important point that I have to address now, maybe you have noticed even already, traditionally climate conferences are held at the end of the year, but we are hearing more and more stronger signals that the Chilean incoming presidency is planning to convene the COP25 in early January or February 2020. If this would be the case, of course, the calendar of activities have to be revised significantly. We should be prepared for updates from the Secretariat in the next couple of days or weeks, because we are hearing that there will be a discussion or meeting of the Bureau. That will be announced by then. So these are the most important elements that we'd like to highlight in this overview picture. And now let's go through the LGMA agenda. This list is based on chronological order. And what we have mapped here, of course, the most relevant ones. In between, there will be several, of course, both in the LGMA, in the UNFCCC and UN, but we want to try to capture the most significant ones as much as possible. We started already our collaboration among the networks in the Global Task Force retreat in Barcelona on the 14th of February last week. That was an opportunity to have a discussion among us. Tomorrow in Paris, there will be a Women for Climate hosted by City of Paris and C40. On the 11th of April, there will be Resident Cities Asia Pacific Congress in India. This would be a good opportunity for the Asian communities and partners. Urban 20 will be held in Tokyo this year. This is the second time Urban 20 Summit is convened. This will be on the 20th of May. 2 days later, in Heidelberg, in Europe, German Minister of Environment, State of Baden-Württemberg, and City of Heidelberg is hosting the International Conference on Climate Action, which has a strong discussion on vertical integration, and this would be a defining moment in particular preparation to the UN Climate Summit in September. 1 week later, after Heidelberg, there will be the R20 Austria Summit. This is the third time this summit is taking place, which is really convening at the highest level in Vienna. In June, we have the G20 environment ministers with a focus on energy at the Nagano province on the 15th of June, and we're expecting there will be strong interaction with the engagement of local and regional governments, but consultations are currently on the way. In June, at the end of June, we have Resident Cities Congress in Bonn. This year it is the 10th anniversary, and it's overlapping on the last 3 days of the UN Bonn Climate Change Conference. And we will go have a brief discussion on this at that relevant agenda. At the end of June, US Conference of Mayors is hosting their traditional summer conference, which is also having a strong agenda on climate. This time it is hosted in city of Honolulu, the capital of Hawaii. Both the city and the state of Hawaii are very pioneer in climate action in the US. Therefore, we expect them to also have strong endorsements or announcements on climate action in the US. In Africa, we will have the local climate solutions for Africa, either at the end of the August or early September. In October, we have C40 Summit, which is every 2 years. This time it will be held in Copenhagen on the 10th and 11th of October. And in Seoul, we will have International Renewable Energy Congress, which is also in back-to-back to the Seoul Mayor's Forum on Climate Change to be hosted by Seoul Metropolitan Government. And the last event of the year is the UCLG Congress in Durban on the 18th of November. This is the LGMA agenda. If we look at a bird's eye view of the biggest UN mobilizations of the year, we will start in a couple of weeks in March, the fourth UN Environment Assembly. There are not too many direct inputs onto the climate agenda, but the One Planet Summit will be hosted second time, and there will be a Cities Summit on the 13th of March. UN Habitat Assembly will convene for the first time at the end of May in Nairobi again. High-level political forum at the ministerial level will be held in New York at the UN headquarters in early July. This will be followed by the UN Climate Summit on the 23rd of September in New York City, and a day after the high-level political forum at the heads of state level on the 24th of September. This year is unique because we will have two high-level political forums. Ministerial discussions are taking place every year, but based on the outcome of the Rio Plus 20 held in Rio in 2012, there is a new phase of political engagement in the Sustainable Development Agenda. If you recall, major milestones was 72, 92, 2012. So the new regime foresees that the heads of state level review of the sustainable development is every 4 years. This gives much more frequency to bring heads of state to the discussion. They track and especially they provide more political guidance, and hoping that the additional guidance with the new leaders will be taking the agenda higher, not backslide, and that this is an opportunity for the heads of state to review their commitment, because the last time they met there were no SDGs, no climate agenda, no urban agenda. So the world is totally different shape in 4 years later. So this time the New York City heads of state level in September is important. We also are hearing on preparations for the 23rd of September climate summit. There will be additional updates, and very likely there may be additional events on the 21 and 22, which is Saturday and Sunday in New York City. So we will see how this will shape up, and there will be several updates in terms of the scope and the way that the sessions are designed in the next couple of slides. And the year will conclude with the desertification COP. This year is taking place in Delhi. This is particularly important because of the land use, but also the biodiversity connections. This year is not only limiting itself in terms of the connections. First of all, our goal is to ensure that by the year 2020, we have more and more national governments who bring new NDCs, and expected that they have much more engagement of local and regional governments and much more ambitious. Therefore, we should be planning ahead for the year 2020 as the ultimate goal. And now, as if the COP25 is taking place in Chile, this is even more important. In 2020, there's another agenda, which is the biodiversity COP to be held in China, and they will also come up with their own post-2020 vision. And then we believe that will give an opportunity to connect climate and biodiversity agendas much closer. If the COP takes place in January 2020, we have to see whether in the same year there will be a COP26. So depending on this decision, there may be expectations that the next COP may also shift. So let's be prepared for all such updates. And with this, I'd like to give the floor to Jisun to take us through the UNFCCC agenda.
Thank you, Eunice, for that updates and a bird's eye overview on the overall UN agenda. Now, I'm building upon this and providing a separate and a detailed overview on the UN FCCC agenda for this year, 2019. As you see in the chronological order, we have 3 regional climate weeks this year, and also constituted bodies on adaptation, technology, finance are meeting in March. And also we have a Marrakesh Partnership in-person workshop coming up in March, exact dates to be determined. And one of the most important agenda items for this year's agenda is SB50, taking place in June in Bonn this year. As many of you recall, ICLEI through the Nairobi Work Programme submitted last year at SB48 the Action Pledge, strengthening the science policy practice interface. And then consultations are underway in order to operationalize this action pledge. So we look forward to sharing more information on this as we have as we get more clarity on the preparation process for that. So please stay tuned. Now, another very important UNFCCC agenda for us, the LGMA constituency, is of course the SCF, the Standing Committee on Finance Forum this year, which will be focusing on sustainable cities, as Eunice mentioned. Again, the exact dates are to be confirmed, and we expect to have more information on this probably after the 20th SCF meeting in March in Bonn, and that we look forward to, again, sharing more information with you through this channel. And then we are looking at the pre-COP in Costa Rica taking place towards the end of this year. Now let us move to the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action. As many of you are aware of, Eunice, can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So as many of you are aware of, the champions have circulated their letter and then asked for feedback and input, especially on the indicative work program for this year, 2019, wherein there are 4 priority areas for this year. So firstly, strengthening the interaction between parties and non-party stakeholders and broadening the basis of participation, and also to continue to follow up and ensure coherence of climate actions throughout all agenda items. And last but not least, to increase the impactful communication. And in order to support these 4 priority areas, there are 7 operational approaches outlined in this champion's email, champion's letter. So firstly, to broaden the participation basis of stakeholders through regional climate weeks. More on this we will look into in our next slide. And also to strengthen the ongoing technical examination process on mitigation and adaptation, which will then also feed into the summary for policymakers each year. And also to approach constituted bodies for possible engagement opportunities, as well as to feed into the UN Secretary General Summit this year. And fifthly, it's important to track progress and monitor. So through the ebook and the NASCA platform, we look forward to having more engagement through this monitoring and tracking process, tracking of progress. And to also to strengthen the media and communication, messaging, and last but not least, to focus on the cross-cutting areas such as finance, resilience, and sustainable development goals. And all of these priority areas and the 7 operational approaches are being taken forward through various actors. So we are operating under the guidance of the 2 high-level champions. We expect to have news about the new Chilean champion soon. And also supporting the champions at the very high level, we have the Marrakesh Partnership Leadership Network. And on behalf of the city and regions, we have the mayor of Bonn, who is also ICLEI president, being a member there. And also we have the 7 thematic groups who are members of the collaboration forum of the Marrakesh Partnership on different areas such as human settlements, industry, transport, water, energy, ocean, and land use. And both parties and non-party stakeholders are invited to provide input till the deadline of 4th March 2019. Now with that, let's look at the regional climate weeks. As we outlined earlier, there are 3 regional climate weeks taking place this year. So in Accra, Ghana, there will be in March the Africa Climate Week, and in August we have in Salvador, Brazil, the Latin American and Caribbean Climate Week. And we have the dates fixed, but not the venue yet fixed for the Asia Pacific Climate Week in September. And I would like to draw your attention to the last column, which is on the UN Secretary General General's Climate Summit theme. So let's recall that earlier this year, we had 6 thematic areas for the UNSG's Climate Summit. And now, based on the most recent information, we have 9 thematic areas, as you see here. And drawing the linkages between the regional climate weeks and the UNSG summit, the 3 themes that we see on energy transition, nature-based solutions, and the citizen local action track are being covered at the Africa Climate Week. So it is quite clear that the rest of the 6 areas will then be covered by the rest of the 2 regional climate weeks. We don't know yet which areas will then covered by which regions, but at least we can make a clear linkage between how the American Partnership's regional climate weeks are feeding into the SG Summit based on the 9 thematic areas. And in the parentheses, you can see all the co-chairs or chairs of these thematic areas championing these issues. And now let us move on to the specific agenda of the Africa Climate Week, which is coming up pretty soon in March. So this is how it is available at the moment on the regionalclimateweeks.org, the website, as how the week will then roll out. I would like to particularly mention that on the first and second day, there is this UNFCCC UNDP organized regional dialogue on NDCs, and there's a breakout session on cities and regions, and ICLEI has been invited to facilitate this session. And then if you look at the Thursday track, we have 3 themes going on throughout the whole day. So finance, policy, and technology. And if you look at the pink line, which is a cities track, cities and local action track. So for technology, Global Covenant of Mayors is leading in support with support from other actors. ICLEI is one of them. And for the policy, UCLG Africa is taking leadership here, and ICLEI is supporting here as well, and with other actors. And for the finance track, Africa Development Bank is leading on this with support from other relevant actors. Again, ICLEI is supporting here as well, along with other actors. And the Wednesday is a high-level day, starting with a high-level opening and then moving into other different areas. So that will be the rollout of the week during the Africa Climate Week, and we're expecting to have an in-person Marrakesh Partnership meeting on 19th of March, either in the morning or afternoon. At the moment, it says as a all-day event, and then we expect to have more information on this after the Marrakesh Partnership coordination call today at 5 p.m. So we came to the end of all our presentations, and we would like to give you the opportunity to ask us any questions or to ask for any clarifications. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open, and you can either raise your hand or you can type in your questions. I see none at the moment. Eunice, is there anything you would like to particularly zoom in on while we wait for okay, I see a hand raised by Anthony. Anthony, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. It's Anthony Pierce here from WWF Sweden. I just wanted to ask whether you had started formulating any plans for particular actions or events at the UN Secretary General's event, the summit.
Thank you, Anthony. Eunice, do you want to take this one?
Thanks, Jason. Hi, Anthony. Yes, this was one of the major agenda items when we met last week in Barcelona. We are still receiving some updates. I mean, we literally heard after Barcelona that while we were in Barcelona having our own retreat, there was a briefing from the UN Secretary General's office to the member states in New York, which included a number of new information. So I think we are gradually taking up our speed. For the moment, Global Covenant of Mayors Secretariat is taking a more active role in terms of bridging us. So I assume more information will come soon. At the moment, I cannot say too much in detail, but it's clear it would be, I mean, those who have participated in the UN Climate Summit in 2014, the way it is designed is a bit different. There is more ownership of the national governments, as you have seen from the thematic group co-leaderships or co-chair roles. How non-party stakeholders will be engaged, we will see. What it means for us as networks, we will again have to see. So I think in the next couple of days there will be more updates. We also are encouraging all our colleagues to connect to New York City, which is also a member of ICLEI, how they are preparing to actively engage in the process, both inside and outside. As the host city, New York City is very actively involved in the climate and sustainability agendas, as you all know. So probably we should wait for a couple of more weeks. But any updates you would like to share is more than welcome. Anthony, from WWF side, I think it would be very valuable to exchange these information much more effectively over the next couple of days.
Thank you,
Okay.
Eunice.
Can I just add, thanks for that. Just for your information, where our focus will be on, from broader WWF, will be on bringing a new deal for nature and people. And so we'll be focusing a lot on the in addition to climate change goal of 1.5 degrees, as sort of the biodiversity side of bringing nature, giving nature a more central role into a lot of these agreements. As to how we do that from the city side, we haven't really worked out, but sort of we'll be working along those themes.
I mean, just to add, Anthony, ICLEI has been actively involved in the biodiversity COP since 2008, and we have much more stronger engagement through official COP decisions and even action plans. And the last COP was in Sharm el Sheikh, where ICLEI, together with also new partners like Energy Forestry, have convened the 6th version of the local and regional governments, or local and subnationals actors summit. And when we concluded that summit, we said that the COP in China, or at that time it was Beijing, should give biodiversity the same impetus that the COP in Paris gave to climate. And in that sense, we are already in touch with several partners. ICLEI is pushing the cities with nature as an initiative, and this post-2020 process, how it's connected to the climate agenda, will be one of the themes that we will be very actively involved. Nature-based solutions, we are happy to see China is leading this process. That makes sense because they are the host of the biodiversity COP. So it may be good, for example, if we connect you to our colleagues in Africa Secretariat who are leading the biodiversity work. They will be in Accra, Ghana, for the Climate Week in Africa. And in case there are participation from WWF, it may be good to support each other. I also see Sarah here from Energy Forestry, so that we all get together. In COP, for example, we are informed WBCSD also has an initiative called Nature for Climate. So it's obvious, compared to the climate agenda, biodiversity is still not as widely known in terms of both the opportunities, but also the political importance or communication wise. So bringing biodiversity and climate agendas closer, making the actors much more connected, can help everyone and bring a number of benefits. So let's make a connection as quick as possible after this webinar and on the way towards the summits.
Great. Thank you, Eunice. Anthony, do you want to come in?
Just to say thank you. That's great. I appreciate it.
All right. Fantastic. Okay. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, are there any questions that you would like to flag or ask us? At the moment, I see none at the moment. Okay, I guess our presentation has been quite clear and well understood. I mean, we are always here. You can always ask us questions. Eunice, would you like to move on to any closing remarks from your side?
Well, it's obvious that several agendas will still have to be updated over the next couple of weeks. Once again, the key for us over these years, of course, this year there is an opportunity to have a more active engagement in the Bonn Climate Conference in June. So by the time we reach there, we can connect many of our outcomes to the UN process, and hopefully we will have a much more ambitious engagement with a specific agenda, and then we can feed into the rest of the year, in particular the summit. But more importantly, I think we should push as much as possible to map those national governments who are more favoring the engagement of local and regional governments, so that we can demonstrate that they announce their commitment to work with us and also raise their ambition. And also, of course, the finance meeting is very important. We have to connect as much as possible to events that are led by local and regional governments, so that we can have maximized interaction with the Standing Committee on Finance. So these are the major cornerstones. Let's recall these webinars are held every month. So the next one will be again in March, the third week. Until that time, the more we receive updates, we can exchange. But over these next rounds of webinars, I think we will go through some more specific topics rather than just the agenda, but more going through the submissions or others, other issues. So with that, I'd like to thank you all, and thanks, Jason, for your facilitation as well. If there's no more inputs, I think we can conclude this round so that we can more time for our colleagues.
Great. All right. I echo Eunice's words of thanks to you for joining us today. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar has been recorded and will be shared with you, both the PPTs as well as the recording files. So with that, we look forward to seeing you all once again in March. Have a great day. Have a great evening. Have a great morning. Bye-bye.